Back in the day, there were these massive entertainment monoliths called arcade cabinets. You would walk in, see a game cabinet with a brightly lit marquee and vivid side art, pop your quarter or token in the coin slot, and you got a great gaming experience that you couldn't get at home on your 2600, NES, Genesis, or PS1. A lot of the time, these games either had graphics too advanced to replicate on the home systems, or maybe a unique control system that would add extra cost to make a home version of. Or maybe no home publishers shown any interest in making console ports. So needless to say, a lot of the games never got home ports throughout the 20 years arcades were prominent. So join me today as we look at a couple of games left in the arcade.
Armadillo Racing!
Armadillo Racing was released sometime in 1996 for the Namco System Super 22, the same arcade platform that hosted the infamous Time Crisis. In Armadillo Racing, 1 to 4 players will compete on a whopping 2 courses to see who's the fastest armored mammal of them all. In these courses, you'll find tons of hazards, bridges, jumps, bumps and rocks to get in your way and slow down your armadillo. Come in first place, you'll be greeted with the Armadillo Bowling minigame at the end. The colors are vivid, the music is really frantic and fun, and honestly the game is like a fun workout. Now at first glance, I can safely say this game did not come to consoles because of its controls. During the PS1 era, trackball control methods were definitely dead for home console games. Namco could have packaged a trackball specifically for this game. I mean, they did release a bunch of point-blank controller bundles, so why not an Armadillo Racing bundle? Another guess of mine is lack of content. The game only had 2 courses and 1 bonus game. Namco would have to add more levels and bonus content to make the game seat worthy of a home release. Unfortunately, that did not happen for us, and Armadillo Racing is left in the arcades. Sega Sonic the Hedgehog is an amazing game that also uses a trackball control scheme. It was released in Japan in 1993 on the Sega System 32, with very few PCBs floating out to other countries. Right off the bat, you'll notice the very first appearances of Mighty the Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel. The latter wouldn't appear again until Sonic Mania. Using the trackball, you gotta guide one of the 3 characters through 7 stages, full of hazards, traps, pits, and a few enemies that'll get in your way. The controls are incredibly simple. You roll the ball to move Sonic, you press a button to jump, that's it. There's only 1 button. So everything in here is really movement based. The game boasts amazing 2D sprite animations, likely the reason why it didn't get a home port for its time. The Genesis no way would be able to render this kind of fidelity for sprites, and the 32X most likely would not be able to handle this either. We could have maybe seen a Sega Saturn port because another System 32 game, Radmobile,
So let's work on changing your mind.
Radmobile. 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 Radmobile.
got a Saturn port. But then again, Sega would have to make a trackball controller or translate the game's controls to the Saturn 3D analog pad. Yuji Naka and Sonic Team did state that they considered adding Sega Sonic the Hedgehog to Sonic Gems collection, but replicating the trackball controls with the GameCube analog stick would not have been good. So unfortunately, this is another one left in the arcade. Mashing buttons is such a satisfying feeling, and this whole game revolves around how fast you can mash. Mach Breakers came out in arcades in 1995 by Namco, and it's a sequel to another game called Newman Athletics. It's a sort of evolved form of the track and field type games that you would see on other systems, but it's got a more fantastic element to it. The gameplay is so simple. You or up to 4 players will be fondling your 2 buttons as fast as possible in order to outcompete each other and set high scores. All these sporting events are very over the top, from fighting off aliens, to defending the world from missiles, You're playing tug of war with a Godzilla monster, and you have the more standard affair like long jumps, hurdles, and overall endurance tests. No way this couldn't have been done on the Saturn or the PS1. Maybe the fact that it was a 2D game in the 3D era really held it back from being put on home consoles. That's really the only thing I can see going against it. It has enough mini games to keep you occupied, and maybe they could have added a few more for a home release. Mashing buttons on a Saturn pad or a PS1 pad might have been hard, but I know people would have made do, and hell, you could even plug in an arcade stick to get around that. The game is insanely addicting. You'll want to keep playing with your friends over and over again to see who's the best. Really unfortunate that this one did not come home.
Ready?
Wait a second here, this looks really familiar. I swear I've played this before. If you've never seen this before, this is Demon Front. Demon Front is a run and gun action game very similar to Metal Slug and Contra. It was released in 2002 by IGS for their own IGS Poly Game Master multi-game system. The IGS PGM is a cartridge-based arcade platform very similar to the Neo Geo. If you're gonna make a Neo Geo clone, you might as well make a Metal Slug clone to go along with it. Now the animation isn't quite as good as Metal Slug, nor is it nearly as violent, so it's pretty standard affair for a slug-like, but instead of vehicle combat, Demon Front introduces unique pet assists. These assists can act like a shield or an extra option for firepower. So if you're using the option to help you in a boss fight, you can charge, release the shot, and then unload on the boss on top of the charge shot. Or if you're surrounded by a bunch of enemies, you can switch to the shield. The shield can take a couple hits before it breaks, and after it breaks, you're gonna have to wait a while before you get another one, which means you will also lose the assist shot. This game was so fit for a console release, the PS2 or the Xbox can easily handle a game of this caliber. But I assume IGS had no intentions of releasing games for the home market. But to this day, we still don't have a consumer release of Demon Front. It might take a minute, but you'll notice right off the bat that there are Street Fighter EX characters in this game. But how if this is a Namco published game? Well, when Capcom published Street Fighter EX, they did just that, publish. Capcom did not develop the EX series internally, instead outsourcing the development to third-party devs Arika. And Arika was actually headed by Street Fighter II designer Akira Nishitani, or Nin Nin, as seen in Street Fighter II's Boxer Casino stage. So by doing the development, Capcom allowed Arika to retain the rights to its original EX characters. The game is slightly different from EX. You can see that there is in fact sidestepping in this game, as well as tons of mechanics boasted on the game's attract screen. And just like in the old EX games, the infamous super cancels have returned. This was released on Namco's System 12, so there's no way that this couldn't have been released on the PS1, since Namco's System 11 and System 12 arcade platforms are nearly identical to the PS1. And we did see Tekken 3 and Air Guy's PS1 ports, so where's Fighting Lair? We wouldn't get a sequel at all until over a decade later, and a spiritual sequel at that, with Fighting EX Lair on PS4 and Steam. But again, this is another one that's just baffling that I got left in the arcade. And that's it for this episode. Obviously I couldn't show every single arcade game that got left behind, or else we'd be here all day. But let me know if you had any favorites that I didn't show off in this video, and I'll try to show them off in the next video. So please do me a huge favor, like and subscribe, follow my Twitch channel, I stream retro games and speedruns and fighting games all the time, and do me another huge favor, have a good day, and thank you so much for watching.